on. The other research I'm going to show you, and it's going to be part of my emphasis throughout, is this idea: if you need to take care of the children, you need to take care of the adults first. So this is a study we did on stress contagion in the classroom. So we know that stress is contagious, emotions are contagious. And even if you're not stressed, if you're around a group of people who are highly stressed, you'll catch it. You probably recall situations like that where you go into a circumstance. And I do have to say, I imagine that there's lots of stressful experiences that happen for all of us. And what we found in this study, well, we wanted to look at, is there stress contagion in the classroom? And what we did is we first went to 4th to 7th grade classrooms to figure out if teachers were stressed and burnt out. And we gave them an actual survey to tell us how stressed and burnt out they were. And for the children, we decided to look at their stress physiology. So we collected their cortisol to look at their level of stress. So if anyone knows of cortisol, it's a stress hormone. It peaks about a half an hour after awakening and decreases the rest of the day. And if it's really high throughout the day, it means high stress. And so we collected the cortisol from the 4th to 7th grade students. There are a few hundred of them. And just, it's through their saliva. So they had to give us their spit, and they loved it. They loved giving us spit. They loved, and actually I joke, but it really was a fun study for them. And when we went back years later and asked them what they remembered most about the research, they said giving us their spit. They really did. They liked learning about their stress in their body and the saliva. Anyway, and I'll talk more about that. But what was fascinating were our findings. We found that those classrooms in which the teachers had the highest level reported stress and burnout were the classrooms in which the students also had the highest levels of stress through cortisol, the stress physiology. Now, we don't know which direction it was. Were the kids coming in with more stress and the teachers were catching that? Were the teachers stressed and burnt out and passing it on to the kids? But really what it means, anytime, any intervention that aims to really help the well-being of children has to attend to the educators. Like I'll just say that over and over and over again. I don't know if I have to convince anyone of this, but I will say. So the key message, adult well-being is directly linked to child well-being, and support the children by supporting the adults. So what now? I'm just going to give you a little primer on social and emotional learning. Basically, what we've seen is a paradigm shift of moving away from ill-being to a focus on well-being and human flourishing, thriving. We've also moved away from just focusing on intervention, where we try and wait till kids have problems and throw them out the life preserver, to one of prevention, one where they put on the life jacket and they have these tools to stay afloat and be resilient. Just as an aside, when we first started working in schools in 2005, teaching children mindfulness practices, even down to 5-year-olds, kindergartners. I just have to tell you, this is an aside. I was skeptical at first, I have to tell you, because I wasn't sure if the young children would take to this. And even the older kids, if they'd think it was stupid. Their first response to me when we were doing this research, finally, we're learning something in school that's useful for our lives. This idea that we now have this tool, and they went and taught it to their parents, to their brothers and sisters. Anyway, so this idea that we have these tools that we could give them to be this life jacket, I think is so central. So social and emotional learning is a growing movement across the US and across the world. Now, my entire visit in Israel was about social and emotional learning, because Israel now is taking it very seriously to embed SEL into the entire education system. I think just as an aside, one thing that's going to be a challenge is how you connect the contemplative approaches with SEL. And that's what I do. But I think sometimes people still see their different buckets necessarily. I mean, I wonder, but it's just something to think about. Here's the CASEL framework, or the Collaborative for Academic Social Emotional Learning. That's the most recognized framework of SEL in the world. That includes these 5 competencies of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Important to think that the rings outside are really the contextual factors that all make a difference. And what I like to do is a really easy infographic that we use to really communicate that SEL, social and emotional learning, isn't just about teaching students a program. It actually includes these 3 dimensions: the students, the educators, and the learning context. And when I talk about the learning context, it includes things like school climate, family school partnerships, community partnerships, discipline approaches, how the school is set up, the physical environment of the school, and then the SEL of educators, their social emotional competence and well-being, and the SEL of students of how it's not only promoted through programs, but integrated into academics. So I actually want to make sure that you all know that SEL is only truly SEL if it includes these dimensions. It's not, if it's just on the students, it's not true social and emotional learning. So here's, so now I'm going to go through